Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thank you very much for tuning in, and this very well may be your second or third video of mine that you've watched, because in the last week or so about 1,000 more subscribers have subscribed to the channel, and it's been awesome. I mean, that's by far the biggest growth spurt that I have had on this channel. So I wanted to do a video on the release of the Challenger. I covered a whole bunch of it. You guys watched a lot of those videos, and I thank you for that. I do work really, really hard at staying neutral. It's a part of what I think a lot of my subscribers appreciate, is my ability to, yeah, I ride a Harley, but I have no problem complimenting another brand, or you know, being really impressed with what they've done. It doesn't mean that I hate my Harley Davidson, or that you can only be a fanboy of one versus the other. I'm just here to share my opinions, share the facts as I know them. If I screw something up, let me know and hold me accountable. I'm totally cool with that. That's just how life works, and again, I have no problem with that. I want to go over this new Indian Challenger, because my first initial impressions on paper, holy crap, this bike looks incredible. One thing you will hear me say frequently on this channel when I talk about motorcycles and compare them, especially when it comes to Harley Davidson and other brands, is perceived value. The one thing that Indian is doing very, very well is they are providing all of those small things. They are not just providing the small things and skimping on the big things. They're also providing the big things. So when it comes to all of these, what I mean small things, is all of the things that customers have been asking for years. Power windscreens on these fairings, all included LEDs on the bike, you know, a better suspension on the rear with the rear monoshock, and then locking bags, and you know, just all those things that I think Indian is just doing refinement better. Some people say they like fit and finish on a Harley better. I'm not here to argue as far as perception goes on bikes. I'm just here to argue that you cannot dismiss all of those small things that people have been asking for years, that Indian is delivering on the Challenger. And to be honest with you, they've been delivering on the Chieftain for a few years now. So I tell you what, man, Indian is coming hard, and to call that motorcycle the Challenger is not only a direct shot at the road glide, but it's a direct shot at the entire market, and that is awesome. One thing that I think this Challenger is going to do very well is it's an American V-twin that provides a whole lot of features, and I'm forgetting one of the bigger things that a lot of people haven't even talked about, the aluminum frame, which is a weight saving. So man, I'm telling you right now, the Indian, it has more power. It is like 20 to 30 pounds lighter. It has more things on it as far as perceived value goes, which is huge. A lot of the things the guys are really upset they have to go and pay for at the parts counter after spending $25,000 on a motorcycle, Indian just gives it to you at that same price point of the MSRP of the other bikes. So it's a no-brainer in my opinion, and it's mind-boggling how Harley Davidson let that happen. I don't think Indian is apologizing for it being a shot at the road glide. It's clear as day that that's kind of where they headed with this bike. But for everybody saying, well, it's a road glide copy, it's not a road glide copy. A road glide doesn't have an aluminum frame. It doesn't have automatic locking bags. It doesn't have an electric power adjustable windscreen. It doesn't have all of these things that Indian gives you stock. LED turn signals, front and rear. Just at the same price point, Indian's just, yeah, here you go. And to be honest with you, I think that's a smart business plan, because for Harley Davidson, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you might get my $200 at the parts counter for this little doodad that I think should have been a standard feature. You might get my $200 today, but you might lose a sale to Indian 2 years from now. And that is very true, and I think that's exactly what Indian is going for with this new Challenger, is those jaded customers. Now, this is not only a shot at Harley Davidson. Everybody's like, well, the fixed fairing bike, they got that from Harley Davidson. There's other fixed fairing bikes on the market. I mean, the Goldwing, another example. I think that the Challenger is going to be very successful for guys who are currently riding around on a road glide, who then go to the dealership at Honda test ride that Goldwing and say, man, you know what? It's like almost a weird defeat thing where they're like, yeah, I'm trading in my Harley for my wings. And I think a lot of those guys just get to the point where they want more refinement in a motorcycle, and they go to the Goldwing because of that. So, and again, you're talking like the electric windscreens and all these things that the Goldwing provides. So I think that Indian was super calculated. I think they're running a pick play on the people who are currently trading in their American V-twin for their Goldwing, because I think a lot of those guys want the refinement but still would like to buy an American-made motorcycle, and that Challenger is going to fit perfectly in there. The only thing that I see that it's not going to provide is a reverse helper gear that a lot of guys trade in their Harleys for, because at some point, you know, their legs get old and they need help backing that bike up. But there's plenty of other guys that I think will make an exception to jump over to that Challenger, and I think it's a smart pick play by Indian. And then of course you have your other bikes. You know, the K1600B, I've thrown that out there. Do I think it's a real contender to the K1600B? It's certainly in that realm, but I don't necessarily think that someone who is shopping a BMW is also shopping an American V-twin. I think that those are just two very different customers. I do think that somebody shopping for a K1600B might look at a Goldwing, but I think they are kind of not sold on the American V-twins, and that's okay. But getting into the Kawasaki Vaquero, yeah, it's probably a little bit of a contender, but I think that's more of a budget bike, and I think you're just in a different price point at that moment. If you look at the $21,000 Challenger versus like a $17,000 Vaquero, I think you're just looking at two different budgets, and that's okay. So I'm not certain that those two bikes are going to really compete with each other. And then getting into the Yamaha Star Looter, you know, of course, that Challenger is going to play and compete with that bike very well. Just looking at everything on the spec sheet, it's a serious contender to every single one of those bikes. It came in priced competitively, if not cheaper, and I'll do another video on builds, because it does get pretty complex looking at the build sheets and comparing bikes, and that really is kind of warranted in its own separate video, I think. Now, the last thing that I want to mention in this video is the other thing I see somewhat frequent, is guys talking about, well, two things. The dealer network for Indian, which I did a whole video on that. I'll link that up above. You can check that out. It's actually a lot more Indian dealers than you would assume, so you can again check that out if you haven't seen that before. And then the other thing is the value of a motorcycle in the used market. I have seen guys throwing figures around going like, yeah, look at a used one. You know, you're talking $6,000 or $7,000 difference in the used market. And I ran the numbers yesterday on quite a few different bikes between NADA and Kelly Blue Book, and then also looking at the used sheets and stuff. And actually John's Moto Garage will be a good one to talk to about this. The biggest gap I saw was $2,000, and I ran this on a 2014 Road Glide compared to a 2014 Chieftain. So obviously a Chieftain in 2014 was not a Challenger in 2020. The engineering is wholly different. So to these guys I say, first of all, if you're concerned about $2,000, which it's not $2,000 because that was the extreme, most of what I saw was like $800 to $1,000 differential between a bike that's, you know, 5 years old. So if you're worried about $1,000 price spread and what that bike is going to be worth in 5 years from now, the first thing I'll say is you probably shouldn't be buying a $27,000 motorcycle then, because clearly if that $1,000 is that crucial 5 years from now, you're probably running a little bit too tight. And then the other point that I will make is I want someone to genuinely tell me they believe that in the year 2025, a 2020 Road Glide Special is going to be worth more than a 2020 Indian Challenger Dark Horse. I do not believe it for a split second. The Challenger today is leaps and bounds, engineering wise, ahead of Harley Davidson. So I just do not see how somebody could make a valid argument to that point. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and again, welcome to all of my new subscribers. I'm thrilled to have you. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel, and I will see you guys next time.